Obviously, our animals can't speak to us or communicate with us, and like when we're working with people, so we're relying on different clues. But a lot of what we're doing with animals is looking at the energetics of what's going on with them, just like we would do with a person. But then, looking at the energetics of the plants and knowing what their actions are and matching. And sometimes you hit it right on the head, and sometimes you have to tweak.
This show is brought to you by Mountain Rose Herbs. Mountain Rose Herbs is committed to putting people, plants, and planet before profit in everything they do. They work hand in hand with farm partners to provide the highest quality organic herbs, spices, extracts, teas, essential oils, and DIY fare. So please visit mountainroseherbs.com for all your herbal product needs. Okay, here we go with Herbal Radio.
This week's episode features Kody Hilton. Working as both a registered veterinary nurse and a certified herbalist, Animal Alchemy was born from Kody's intertwining interest to bring small batch organic herbal care to cats and dogs.
Right now I'm in Humboldt County.
I mean, Mountain Rose has its roots in Humboldt County. So.
Yes. Actually, from what I've heard, and I've been trying to, I've actually get the details of the origins of Mountain Rose. I believe Mountain Rose started in Redway, which is the closest town to where I live.
Right. And I think originally with Rosemary Gladstar is kind of just out of the back of her car, selling herbs and Julie Bailey, I think it was the same way, it's just like this small tiny, that's true for so many companies, right?
Right.
You start out just selling to your friends, and then it kind of word of mouth, it grows. And then before you know it, you got something that you can't quite get your hands around because it's so damn big. And
right. Look at where Mountain Rose is now. It's such a long.
Yeah, exactly. So you're in Humboldt County. Did you grow up in Humboldt?
I didn't grow up here, but I've lived here for about 15 years.
Yeah.
I was just in Southern Oregon for a couple years, and I just came back to Humboldt about a month ago.
So you were close then. You're down in, right? Yeah, we have lots of farms that we work with down in Southern Oregon. So it's definitely a place that we love. That's that area is so special. So, but okay. How did you get into animals, and how did you get into herbalism?
I have always loved animals, so that's the simple answer there. But
right, I don't know what I was expecting there.
But I started studying to become a veterinary nurse in 2003 and got licensed in 2005. It's a 2-year program that you do, and then you take a state board exam. So I was working with animals since the early 2000s in the veterinary setting. Of course, this is all very conventional, and it's changed a lot since I started. And then I was living in the Bay Area at that point, and I moved to Humboldt in 2010. And this was kind of like the start of my herbal journey. I had started seeing a clinician at the Berkeley Herbal Center, or maybe it's called the Ohlone Herbal Center now these days. And then when I moved to Humboldt, I was living on property for the first time, and I was really one-on-one with the plants, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So I did a lot of self-study at first, and then I, decided to expand my formal education, went to a couple programs, and my first program was at the Blue Otter School of Herbal Medicine with Sarah Holmes, and the final project was do whatever you want. And I was like, how do I do herbs and animals? And so I went online and started Googling, and lo and behold, there was a holistic veterinarian not very far from the school. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, can I come shadow you for a day? And he's like, yeah, come on down. And so I spent a couple days with him and just following him around in his practice. And that was really eye-opening. And that was kind of the beginning of really this journey of weaving herbalism into animal and veterinary care. And that was why I was in Oregon for the past 2 years, because I was working for him. So that was kind of like a deeper dive into it, and, just working one-on-one and having that mentorship to really just really, really understand how it works. And And of course, there's more to learn. There's always more to learn. That's the beauty of herbalism.
Right. So how much of it at that time? So once you kind of found herbalism with animals, and at that time you were already herbalism for yourself, right?
Mhm.
So that was, and then how? So what were some of the first plants that you were working with for yourself? And then I want to talk a little bit about the animals as well. But I like, what were some of the first plants that you discovered?
Yeah. Um, I think that St. John's wort was a really potent ally for me in the beginning,
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah,
what kicked off my herbal journey.
yeah.
I quickly developed a relationship with that plant. There's a lot of it that
Mhm.
grows here in Humboldt. And once I saw it and knew how to identify it and had sat with it, I just couldn't unsee it. Um,
Yeah.
so that was,
Isn't it amazing the way that works?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a really potent one. Yarrow was another one. There's a lot of yarrow
Mm.
that grows here.
Mhm.
Comfrey was growing on the farm that I was living on
Mhm.
that I was living on when I first moved out here, and I just started harvesting them and experimenting with making medicine, and that was really fun. Yeah.
And so you were studying at the time as well, so you were able to kind of research what the plants were used for, and, did you find that you had a different relationship with the plant than and I ask this question because sometimes I hear it on this podcast a lot with herbalists is that, yes, there's, like, these traditional uses for the plants, and these plants are normally used for, whatever you're trying to get out of that, that's the normal for people, but then you have, like, this personal relationship with the plant that sometimes brings out something that doesn't necessarily, align with what traditional use is. Did you find that to be true?
Not always. I mean,
Mhm.
I think maybe it's I personally didn't have that, but I know when I was working in the herb store, I would have that experience with other people who would come in and we'd be talking about plants and they're like, "I'm using,
Yeah.
this plant is helping me with this situation." I'd be like, "Oh, that's interesting," because I wouldn't have
Yeah.
thought about that plant for,
Right.
thought or like energetically that it would align in that way. So I personally haven't I feel like things align a lot, but
Okay.
for me, but I've seen it with other people, just working in the retail setting, and that's always really interesting. And I think that's the thing I love about herbalism is a sense that, you know, you might have your relationship with the plants, but somebody has a completely different relationship with the plants. Uh,
Right. And I think the reason that I kinda hit on that is because I assume it's a little different when it comes to animals, because animals are not they have to communicate with us in a much different way than a one-on-one with a human has that type of communication. So, really relying on the traditional uses for plants when it comes to animals, I imagine is very, very important in, like, knowing what to give to an animal.
yeah, it's definitely it's similar and it's different.
Mhm.
And I mean, obviously our animals can't speak to us or communicate with us and like when we're working with people. So we're relying on different clues. But, a lot of what we're doing with animals is looking at the energetics of what's going on with them, just like we would do with a person.
Mhm.
But then, looking at the energetics of the plants and knowing what their actions are and matching. And sometimes you hit it right on the head and sometimes you have to tweak and adjust, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's not like you're giving an animal, I don't know, like cleavers and you're like, "How does that make you feel?" You kinda just have to look at them and say, "Okay, are these symptoms getting better or
Right,
improve
right,
clinically?" Yeah.
right, and so it's not and also in the sense of, like, what are you looking to improve, correct? I mean, that's, like, identifying what it is with an animal. Again, I find it to be difficult with my own experience because is it out of the norm for them to be acting the way that they're acting, right? Like, are we trying to change something that's just built into their genetics? I think about horses a lot,
Mhm.
right? And we have off the track thoroughbreds.
Okay.
Off the track thoroughbreds have been bred to be scared and to run fast. Yeah. That's what's in them. And then so often we try to, well, how can I change that behavior in the horse instead of how can I work with that behavior in the horse?
Yeah.
Now, for sure, like with off the track thoroughbreds, we find that alfalfa can have a real effect on them as far as an energetic goes. Like alfalfa is fantastic for putting on weight. Alfalfa is fantastic for keeping energy levels up, especially for older horses. But boy, those young horses that get a lot of alfalfa, man, you are going to have a pistol on your hands.
I had a 3-year-old thoroughbred when I was young. And
oh boy. So
somehow I never got bucked off that horse, but she would buck every single time I rode her.
So yeah. But so that idea that with animals are, and I think there's so much that we can talk about with animals, but I did want to kind of hit on this a little bit, is how do you diagnose what is going on with an animal, and how do you know what it is that you're trying to change?
Well, I have to, with my license, my veterinary nursing license, I can't diagnose. So that's not within my scope of practice. What I can do is, so I was working at a holistic veterinary clinic with the Animal Kind Holistic Veterinary Clinic with Dr. Judkins. So I want to give him a shout out because he's a big mentor to me. So he was responsible for doing the diagnosing. And then from there, a lot of times he'd be like, make a formula. And so I think unless you're in the veterinary practice, you're not necessarily diagnosing, but what you can do is look at the symptoms of what's happening and try to symptomatically. What I like to tell people is, if you want to work together, you need to go get a diagnosis from your veterinarian, a work, whatever, and then we can figure out what herbs would be appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah. Because getting having that information really can guide you in a good direction as far as what herbs to choose for that animal. But obviously, every animal is really unique. And then just to take it a step further, the herbs are great, but then it's also looking at the whole picture. Like, what's this animal eating? That's a big part of working with animals from a holistic perspective and this is often the root cause of a lot of the issues, especially the chronic aging issues, and the skin issues and the allergies. It's often diet related and toxin accumulation. So, in a conventional setting, a lot of animals are taking flea and tick medications every month or heartworm prevention every month. And, over time that builds up and some animals can have reactions to that. So it's looking at diet, it's looking at, toxic exposures, vaccines. That's a big topic. And just sort of lifestyle and addressing all of those issues and weaving the herbs in at the same time. So that's looking at the full picture, just like when you're working with a person, we're talking holistic, we're talking, body, mind, and spirit. And how does this animal seem? Are they happy or are they scared? And, what can we do to get them to their highest?
Right. So are there any herbs that and I'm not asking for any recommendations on here, because again, I know that we probably want to steer clear from that a little bit. But in a general sense, I mean, is herbs okay to work with if you work with your vet or your clinician or something? I mean, are herbs okay to have let's say a daily supplement that you're giving to your pet?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It sort of depends upon what's going on with your pet, but if you want to, some of the more adaptogenic, tonifying, detoxification herbs, those are great on a daily basis.
And how does that work as far as evolutionarily with an animal? So let's just go ahead and take a cat, for instance. So you have a cat. Evolutionarily, they evolved mostly to eat, animals. But you're introducing like this herb into their diet. Is that something that would have been naturally introduced? How does that work?
Yeah, so cats are obligate carnivores, meaning that they do need to eat meat to survive, and that is what makes up the primary part of their diet. But
Mhm.
if you were to look at their ancestral diet, they would be eating like rodents and birds. And some of those animals might have a little bit of plant material in their stomach if they were to eat
Mhm.
that. So while the majority of it is, meat and bone, there is a little tiny bit of some plant
Mhm.
that they're
Sure. Sure.
consuming. And so if you look at cats, a lot of times they're outside, maybe they're grazing on grass. It's a pretty natural behavior for them to eat grass, and dogs too if their stomach hurts.
Sure.
Or they gravitate towards catnip or valerian, things like that.
Mhm.
So, there are, like with a cat, evolutionarily, like they wouldn't be utilizing or gravitating towards a lot of plants. So cats are a little
Mhm.
trickier to get herbs into. But really, what I always tell people is start with a very low dose and work
Mm.
up to, a more recommended dose. And dosing is a little tricky. There's a lot of thoughts around dosing in animals, just like there is dosing in people. But the easiest way to get herbs into animals is to just mix it in the food
Yeah. Yeah.
and just hide it. Palatability is going to be a big thing that we're always thinking about getting herbs into animals, uh,
Mhm.
because it comes down to compliance
Mhm.
when you're thinking about that. But so with kitties, I would just be like kind of sliding it in slowly and working your way up.
Right, right. And when it comes to your pets, are you so is this something that you would like preemptively look at doing? Or is it something that you kind of do in a sort of a reactionary way in the sense that there's something going on with my pet, so I need to, how often is it like my question, I guess, being that too often I think that we hear about something online, we read, "Oh, this really worked for my pet." And so we all just start, "Hey, oh, I'm gonna introduce this
Yeah.
into my pet." And it's always this like preemptive sort of approach. And do you recommend them wait until there is a problem before you start working with herbs with your pet, or is this something that you think that can be in a preemptive approach?
I think you can totally, you know, be proactive with introducing herbs into your pets' diets to keep them healthy. Um, but also, they work great if there is an issue. They can be used in either capacity. I personally, I have my cats on herbs to support their kidney health. Their numbers are fine on their level,
Mhm.
but I know that that's like the weak organ in kitties,
Yeah,
uh,
right,
and so I'm proactively supporting them, even though they're okay
right.
right now. But I want them to live as long as they can and be as happy as they can.
Sure.
There are a lot of ways, but to take it one step beyond just weaving herbs in, it's a lot of it comes down to diet and getting them on a really like a healthy whole foods diet. A lot
Mhm.
of a lot of the food that animals are being fed these days is very processed.
Mhm.
And so it's very nutrient void. The kibbles, which is very convenient, and
Right.
a lot of people choose to feed that, and it's cheaper. There's a lot of reasons why people do kibble, but it is highly processed and highly inflammatory. And
Mhm.
so we see a big difference when we get the animals off of that type of diet and onto more of a whole foods-based diet with real meats and real vegetables and organ meats and those types of things woven in.
Mhm.
And then from there, that really sets them up for a life with health.
Mhm.
And what I always tell people is like, yeah, it might be a little more expensive in the beginning to get them going on that, but like you're investing in your pet's health. Like just like
Right.
you know,
Right.
you don't want to eat foods that you don't know what is in the ingredients. It's
Mhm.
the same thing for our animals. And that's really the foundation of where all this starts is getting them on a good diet. And yes, then weave in some herbs. Keep
Sure.
them healthy. Yeah.
With that kind of idea in mind, I feel like obviously the what we feed them, again, I know what you're saying, this is so important. And I think about that as far as it is very easy to go out and buy this bag of dog food, right? And then like that's pretty cheap and it's very convenient, but you're just feeding them fast food, right? I
Essentially,
mean, yeah. and imagine your life if all you had was fast food. It's just gonna you're gonna deteriorate pretty quick as far as health goes. It's gonna have a pretty, uh, it's a an effect on your health, an effect on your body, and the same with the pets. So really focusing first on having them have a high quality food
Yeah.
diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The foundation of everything.
Yeah.
What I
So, go ahead.
what I tell people who, maybe are feeling like there's some cost limitations, which is a reality for some folks,
Of course.
or they have large animals and that feels too overwhelming, or they don't want to prepare it themselves because there's different ways to do these diets. There are a lot more commercially prepared diets these days that are very convenient, or you can make these diets yourself, which is a little bit more work, but a little more cost effective. So I
Sure.
like to lay out on a table, like, here are all your options.
Mhm.
And, what works for you. And so what I tell people who are like, I just can't afford it, or this feels, I don't want to, touch raw organs or raw meat, then,
Right.
do what you can do. Getting them off of some kibble, feeding some raw and some kibble is better than feeding all kibble. So it's just kind of
Mhm.
about meeting people where they're willing to, where they can make that work.
Mhm.
Um, and, even if they can't fully transition over to a raw food or a whole food, some is better than none, but also just like, incorporating whole foods as treats is another option. The
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really the idea is just to like try to cut down on the processed kibble as much as possible.
Yeah. Um, so most of us have, we have our veterinary relationship, and I don't necessarily talk to my vet about herbs. And I feel like maybe it's like a pretty, I don't know. It's like, how do you go about that with your vet?
Yeah. So animal herbalism within the veterinary context is a pretty niche arena. When you go to veterinary school or veterinary nursing school, you're just taught the Western medical model.
Of course.
There's no mention of anything holistic.
Yeah.
There is a growing interest and demand for, um, more holistic options for people's pets, which is great. But really it comes down to, some veterinarians, they just aren't trained in that capacity and they don't know. So they
Mhm.
may not be able to really guide you because they don't know themselves. But there are a lot of
Mhm.
good resources out there. The American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association
Huh?
is great. It's a group of veterinarians that, that's what they're doing. They are working holistically. Some of them are fully holistic, some of them are integrated. But if you go on their website, they do have a feature. It says, find a veterinarian near me. And some of those veterinarians do work like in the telehealth setting. So that's always an option. If your veterinarian doesn't know a lot about herbalism and you want to dive deeper or find that verbal, an animal herbalist who's willing to talk to you and work with your veterinarian. But yeah, it
Mhm.
gets a little sticky with the veterinarians who don't necessarily have that training and have that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I can imagine that conversation. And also, like, that's, what I get nervous about, especially again with the pets, is that they really can't communicate in the same way. They can communicate for sure, but they can't communicate it in the same way
Mhm.
as necessarily a human that you're having this interaction. So, you do something, you hear about something, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna introduce this into their diet, or I'm going to apply this medication in some way, and then not having that communication, and knowing whether or not it's harming them, or if they're having this effect that you're hoping that it will have.
Right.
I mean, yes, you can watch their behavior and that sort of thing. So, relying really on the vet, but then again, like, you come across this issue where the vet may not actually know anything about this product, and probably won't not recommend it, correct?
A lot of times the conventional vets are not going to recommend herbs. There's definitely different schools of thoughts around using, how to treat animals. And there's a lot of
Mhm.
conventional, and there is this growing holistic. So if I would say try to find a holistic vet if you can.
Yeah.
If you really
Right.
want to get your animal like on a more natural path and
Mhm.
great herbs. Um,
Well, I do find that it seems to be a little bit more, uh, prevalent, I guess, in large animal. Like, I find that, like, with horses, the vet seems to have a little bit more understanding about herbs. And again, we're talking about an animal that just is only eating plants, so having that, understanding of what plants is good and what plants are, you know, that sort of thing. But I definitely feel like with large animal vets, I can have that conversation with them and talk about herbs a little bit more, and there is some knowledge behind that. But I guess I really haven't had that many conversations with the small animal vets as far as, "What do you think about herbalism, and how do we introduce some herbs into," with for me, it would be cats. I don't
yeah,
have any dogs, so.
yeah. I think it's shifting a little bit. When
Mhm.
you go on to the veterinary websites that offer continuing education, as a licensed vet or nurse, you have to do continuing education. And there are a smattering of more holistically minded classes, which I'm always really excited to see. I'm like, oh,
Mm, yeah.
class on essential oils, cool.
Mhm.
Or a basic class on, herbs for animals. So,
Mhm.
but it's not something that's like offered when you go to school. So it's something you have to seek out. But it is really promising and exciting that these, large uh, educational bodies for the veterinary field are starting to offer them. So,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, that's great that you can speak to your large animal vets. And that makes a little more sense to me because a lot of those animals are herbivores, whereas like, the cat dog world is a little different. But
It is. I find it to be a little bit different. It's funny, I was having a conversation recently, with my vet about the cats, and, we were talking about, and he brought up essential oils. We were talking about aromatherapy,
Mhm.
and that, we have candles, or, we have a lot of diffusers in the house and things, and the vet bringing up to me, like, "You gotta think about your pet and that they're, the sense of smell is so much stronger,
Yeah.
and that you're putting something out that they could literally be suffering because they're you're you have this essential oil that you're diffusing,
Mhm.
and it's so much stronger to them." And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. I never think about that, and that, of course, the way that our senses are so much different than the pet's senses, and what kind of world are we providing for them in this, like, enclosed area, especially.
Yeah. That's a really good point. There are a lot of um uses of essential oils that can be toxic or damaging or noxious to our animals. And they're from the emergency medicine perspective within the veterinary context, like that is a topic that gets brought up a lot. Uh,
Mm,
yeah, I've taken many a classes on like the toxicities of essential oils and how do
yeah,
you treat them and signs to look for.
yeah.
And that's coming from, the conventional side of veterinary medicine. So
Mhm.
I think things are changing, and I think that's reflective of the growing interest in herbalism within the human realm because as people, we're wanting to live a more natural lifestyle. A lot of people are, and incorporating essential oils and herbs. And,
Mhm.
people want that for their animals, but they're also being exposed to it more. We,
Right,
yeah,
right.
like cleaning products,
Yeah.
aerosolized potpourris, things like that. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's definitely more.
And again, like that, I know with our cat, we had an older cat, and she would, whenever we would use these certain cleaning products, where she would just sneeze and cough, and it was really, ag an understanding. At first, we were like, "Why is she coughing? Why is she, what is going on with her?" And then you realize, "Oh, no, like, I'm doing this," which breaks your heart, right? Because you're like, "Oh, this cleaning product is what's doing it, and she's suffering because of that." And I also think about, like, especially with essential oils, one of the horse barns that we were at, a few horse barns ago, um, there was a girl there, and she was young, and she had heard about and I can't remember what plant it was. I wish I could, because I could put the warning label on that one in this podcast, but she had heard that there was a certain plant for that would calm her horse. Well, she just assumed that if she took the essential oil of that plant and then put it in the feed of
Oh,
her horse, that would calm. And again, it was a thoroughbred, and that horse was days away from death. I mean, it had lost over a 3-month period, had lost almost all of its body weight. I mean, it was, it couldn't digest. It was really, really an issue.
wow.
And finally the vet was trying to figure out what it was. And she she was like, well, maybe it's this essential oil. And it was like, oh my God, that's this concentrated plant power that's in this, this essential oil, of course. But again, obviously she loved that horse and she wasn't trying to harm it in any way. She was trying to help it. But through that ignorance of knowing what an essential oil is and how powerful that plant can be,
Yeah.
I think it was really close to tragedy.
Ah, that's such a sad story.
Yeah.
But
Well, and again, that warning label that I'm putting on there in the sense of like being understanding that your pets, it's going to have a different effect on your pets than it does on yourself.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm always really cautious with essential oils. I like to use them very minimally and just, for short periods of time. I think that
Yeah.
they're very potent. They're very potent for people. And then you shrink down your animals and their systems are different than ours. And cats don't,
Right.
cats lack an enzyme in the liver to metabolize the essential oils. So they're a little more sensitive.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Our aromatherapist on staff here, she always talks about, she has cats as well, and she always talks about just using hydrosols.
yeah, hydrosols are great. Absolutely.
Right. Because that's not going to have that power. It's not going to have that same effect. And they do kind of work, obviously, like I love spraying a lavender hydrosol around the house, and it does seem to like help with the cats. They seem to calm them down a little bit when they're being a little neurotic and that sort of thing. And I'm not seeing any negative effects from that. So I feel like, using the hydrosol could be a good starting point.
Hydrosols are great. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, very safe.
So I want to talk a little bit about your company, Animal Alchemy, and like what you're doing.
Yeah, animal alchemy is definitely the marriage of my passions and my experiences between my veterinary work and my herbalism. I started part of why I was up in Oregon was so I could really, really deep dive to be at a point where I could start this company. And my passion project, it's my heart, was inspired by my dog who passed
Mm,
away, and we used a lot of herbs to keep him comfortable in the end. So a lot of what it's at this point geared towards dogs and cats. It's mostly tinctures, some topical products, meant to be, mixed into the food. And there's different formulas for different things that your pets might be experiencing.
mhm,
And it really brings me a lot of joy to work with local farmers to really bring high quality herbs into the products.
mhm.
I get really good results from,
Nice.
the locally grown organic regenerative herbs that, are so abundant in the Applegate Valley in Oregon where I was living. So
Mhm.
fortunate to like have those relationships with those herb farmers and
Yeah.
to incorporate those herbs into my products. And circling back to what I was saying earlier about, you don't want to put things in your body, the things that you put in your body, you should feel comfortable to put into your pet's body. So my goal is to create high quality medicine for our pets to really just
Yeah.
bring them back into balance.
Yeah. So, you mentioned something that I did want to talk a little bit about because and this might be more for humans than pets, but one of the tragic things about owning a pet is that you're probably going to experience their death, and that's it's the worst. There's just no other way to put it. It's the
Nah.
worst thing I know for myself. It's the worst thing I've ever gone through. It's just like really horrible. Um, do you have any recommendations as far as for the human side of things, like some herbs that's going to help with that?
I think when it comes to the loss of our pets, I think that the flower essences are really potent. They work more on the energetic level. When I was working in practice, I actually created some blends that were 2 blends. I made 1 blend for the animals to help them to have a safe transition to their next life or their next place, and full release. And then I created a formula for the humans,
Oh, nice.
because people come in and they're just and they're grieving and they're sad and they're really,
Right.
that they're losing their best friends. So I think the flower essences can be really potent. Bleeding heart, that's the one that really just pops out for this situation. That's a really good one. Also, just working with any sort of the more like heart-centric herbs like hawthorn, linden, mimosa. Those are all really great for grief. And I would say steer towards those. Those can really just ease the ache. There is just kind of nothing that can describe the pain of losing a furry
There
friend.
really isn't.
Yeah. When I lost my dog, who this whole project was inspired by, I would burst into tears for like 5 years. It was insane.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just out of the blue, you're just like, oh, it just hits you. It just smacks you right in the face. You're like,
Now,
oh,
like,
that's
shouldn't we be over this by now? I'm like, oh god, here I go again.
Yeah, no, it's like I heard a comedian once talk about like, oh, I'm gonna go get this pet, so someday I can be incredibly sad. But that's
Yeah.
part of it. Like you have to. I'm not saying that experience is good in any way, but it is part of owning that pet and having that pet as being a part of its life. Is that
Yeah.
it's not always going to be there, but that's why you know um you got to really cherish the
Yeah.
times that you do have with them.
Yeah.
It's like it's so important
It's
because
it's an honor and a joy to share our lives with them and to be able to take care for them.
Mm,
Also a very honorable and sacred place that as their guardians that we have the ability to help them pass to a place when we know that they're suffering.
right.
That
Yes.
that can be really challenging for people, but just that's what I always tell people. I'm like, you're in a really unique situation where you can help your pet not suffer.
Right. Right. All that joy that they brought to you, all those times that they were there for you when you were, when you needed it most. Now you can be there for them when they need you most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is like, I've seen this so many times, like the animals, they hold on for us.
They do.
They hold on.
Absolutely.
And I always tell people, like, when you're ready, you just tell them and they'll let you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to be so sad, but the last cat that we had to put down, her name was Little Kitty, and she was just everything for me. Like she was just my girl. And right up into the last breath that she had, she was just in my arms purring. And it was just like she just went out so happy and was just there, and it was such a moment that I'll never forget. And not all of those moments with her I'll never forget, but just like those last moments with her, and it's just like and that's one that I'll still cry about just out of the blue.
Oh, we're always gonna have that one dog or that one cat or
Right. Yeah.
Those are like our soulmates.
Okay, so another question, and sort of in the same vein as far as herbalism go. Do you have any herbs that will help you so you don't? I have a problem with just wanting to get every pet that I see, because every kitten season comes around, and I'm like, what we need? We need another kitten. And my wife she just collects horses. Like we just always, seems to be getting another horse. And so is there anything that we can do? Do you have any recommendations?
As far as collecting animals?
Well, yeah, like an herb that we can take that kind of, helps us with that.
do you feel like you're wanting to have all these animals because you feel bad for them?
Yes.
Yeah.
That and also like I don't know if there's, again, I'm such a cat person, but and I do love dogs too. I love dogs. But man, there's something about a kitten.
Yeah. No, kittens are
Yeah.
adorable.
Yeah.
What if you were to take some of that compassion that you have, if you were not really wanting to end up with every single animal, and
Mhm.
took that energy and put it into helping a spay and rescue organization or an adoption agency?
R- Right. Right. I think that's probably the best recommendation. Although I can never foster because I just wouldn't give him up.
That's how I
It
ended
would
up
be
with my most special dog. He was a total foster fail. I was like,
the foster fails. Yeah.
total foster fail. He won my heart, and I was like, okay.
So what's next on the horizon for you?
Well, I'm back in Humboldt, so I am busy making more products. I'm going to be trying to just expand this product line.
Mhm.
I'm hoping to do some teaching at some of the
Ooh.
local herb stores. I'm going to be approaching them about that. And then, sort of on a personal level, I just started nursing school, human nursing school. So I'm 1 week.
Oh,
So that's a big thing that's happening.
wow.
Yeah.
So would that also be in a holistic approach to nursing?
Ultimately, that's my idea, is to just
Mhm.
expand all of my holistic background and nursing background to humans. But
Mhm.
I'm in they, they don't offer holistic nursing when you're first starting out, but once
Yeah,
you get
sure.
licensed as a nurse, there are more options to become certified or focused as a holistic nurse, and so that's what I will be doing eventually,
Right.
a couple years down the.
That's amazing. So
Yeah,
really you're just all about helping anything that breathes and walks on the planet, right? That's just
yeah.
like that's slithers, walks, just breathes, has a presence here on the planet.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
just gonna help them. I
I
love
love
that.
helping
That's
people. I love helping people also. I work on the first aid and wellness crew at the Northern California Women's Herbal Symposium.
mm,
And it's always so inspiring to connect
yeah,
with people and to be able to help them and make formulas for them and get the feedback and see how they improve. And so that is what I would love to do, with people as well as with animals.
well,
So
it's because you're an herbalist, and herbalists are the most giving human beings. They just give it all away. They're so wonderful, and I don't think I've ever met a bad herbalist.
yeah,
So I don't know if I can talk about any other group the same way. It's just like there's just herbalists are incredible, and of
right.
course that's what you want to do. You're just
Yeah.
like I got to keep giving. How can I give more?
Let me help you with this. Have you tried this?
Yeah.
About this? Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much for being on. This was really, really interesting. I was so excited about this one because obviously with a pet owner and pets being, you know, such a huge part of my personal life and my wife's personal life. And I think so many people out there, who doesn't have pets? I mean, it's just like everybody has a pet
Yeah.
and, you know, and, but when when it comes to herbalism, there's so many questions around that.
Mhm.
So I'm excited. I'm so excited that we had this conversation. I'm really excited about the resources that you provided. And there will be links to your website and to the websites that you talked about in this podcast as well. So, but thank you. That was such a lovely conversation.
Thank you. I'm really happy to have been able to join you this morning and just talk about what feels so important. And
Well, pets are the most important thing.
they
So,
are. And it also feels really nice to empower people to be able to care for their pets in a more
yeah,
holistic approach. Because
right.
there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of hesitation because people aren't sure how to do it in a safe way.
Sure. No, I agree with you. Even for myself, being around herbalism as long as I've been around it, like I have a lot of hesitation
Mhm.
because the last thing that I want to do is hurt those little guys, you
Or
know.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so luckily for us, there are people like you out there that are, dedicating your life to that study, and we can, kind of count on you
Yeah.
and help us with that journey. So,
Yeah, I'm available if people want to reach out, whatnot.
oh, that's lovely.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have a fantastic day.
Thanks, you too, Tommy.
Okay, bye-bye.